Now looking at the IP reporting tab. To activate the P-Comm port for IP reporting, the P-Comm port is UL listed for IP reporting. You need to click on Add IP Reporting. There are three options at the top. We're going to talk about these and then get into the reporting accounts. Starting with reporting method priority. Your options are primary and secondary. The default is primary. The PFC-6000 series panels have the capability of reporting via the IP, which was what we're looking at right now, as well as the UD1000, which is the dialer. If you would like the IP reporting to back up the dialer, you would set this to secondary. If the reverse is true, you want the IP reporting to be primary, you can set the dialer up to be secondary. The same reporting method priority option is in the dialer tab when setting up the UD1000. You can also set up both of them to be primary, which means that when the signal comes into the fire alarm control panel, it will send the information via the UD1000 and the dialer, as well as the IP reporting P-Comm port. Again, the default here is primary. The next thing we have is reporting path, and the default is built-in IP dialer. If I hit the drop down here, my other option is the FCB-1000. This is the Fire Communication Bridge. It is the remote Ethernet connection that you can mount in a 19-inch rack mount near the router. If I pick this, that means that when I'm sending my signals to Central Station, they will be going out of the FCB-1000 port instead of the P-Comm port. Again, the default is built-in IP dialer. For more information on the FCB-1000, please refer to the recorded module on the FCB-1000. Your next option up here is the panel UDP port, and the default is 3060. This can be changed. Port numbers refer to ports that reside in the router. Now this is the panel side, which means this is the router that the panel is connected to. So this is your customer's router or their gateway to the internet. What we're saying is we're going to send information out of port 3060. This can be adjusted. Your network administrator may ask what ports you need open. In this case, you would say 3060. They can tell you to change that, and you can go ahead and change that number here to whatever they tell you. I'm going to leave that default as 3060. The thing to remember is this port number is for the port for the router that is on the panel side of this communication path. So it's the router that is owned by your customer. Alright, going down to IP reporting accounts. There are 5 lines here. We're going to start with the first line and then talk about what the other 4 do. So the first thing you need to decide is what type of signals are going to be sent. So if we're going to have this first line go to Central Station, we're going to select alarms, troubles, and supervisories. My next option is to decide how much information to send. The default is point, which means it gets all the specific information of the event of that particular point. I can select zone, which means it gets the information of the event per zone. So there's an alarm in this zone number, there's a supervisory in this zone number, etc. Panel is just going to give me there's an alarm on this panel. That's all the information I'm going to get. Again, the default is point. To expand primary account settings, you click on the arrow. The first column is primary account ID number. This is something that Central Station will give you. So you'll enter in an account number, whatever it is they give you here. The next option that you'll get is primary DNIS. If your Central Station gives you a DNIS number, you're going to enter that here. If they do not, don't worry about it, just leave it blank. I'm going to say that they did give me a DNIS number, so I'm going to go ahead and enter this here. Now I'm going to say they only gave me a 4-digit number. This needs to be 6 digits, so I'm going to autofill those 2 zeros. So when you're using DNIS, the format has to be contact ID, which is why this box turned red, because this does not work. So I just need to change this to contact ID. Your 2 reporting formats are SIA or contact ID for IP reporting. My next option is report test events, so go ahead and check that if you want that to happen. The next column is primary receiver IP. So instead of giving you a phone number, Central Station is going to give you an IP address. So you go ahead and enter the IP address that they gave you into this column, whatever number that is. And I'm just making up a number here. You enter that into this area. Primary protocol, in this case we're just going to leave that as Fibro. This panel is UL listed with a SureGuard System 3 IP receiver, and this is the language that we speak with that, which is called Fibro. Alright, so now the next column is a UDP port. Now I mentioned UDP port up in the upper left. This is a UDP port given to you by Central Station. They also have a router on their side which allows them access to the internet, and we need to go through that router into their receiver. So they're going to give you a UDP port. Whatever number that is, you're going to enter that here. You're not going to enter it up in the panel UDP port because that's for the router for the panel. So Central Station gives you a UDP port or a port number, and you'd enter that here. The supervision interval is next. That is defaulted to 90 seconds. What that means is the panel is going to send a supervision ping to the receiver at Central Station every 90 seconds, and that is the maximum by code that you can put in there. If you would like that to be less, you can go ahead and make that less, but the default is 90. If they give you an encryption key, Central Station gives you an encryption key, you're going to enter that here, and the only encryption method we have is 128-bit. So that's what you would do there if they give you that information. So that is for the primary IP receiver. Now I'm going to shrink that up by clicking on the arrow again, and I have my backup, which is my secondary receiver or account. The account number is probably going to be the same. If they gave you a DNIS number, they probably are going to give it to you again. So then you change this to contact ID. They're going to give you a different IP address because this is going to a secondary receiver backing up the primary. It will still be Fibro. They will probably give you the same UDP port, but you do need to enter that in here. The supervisional interval is set to 90, and then again you can encrypt this information if you want to. So that is setting up one account. Now you can go down to the next line and send that information to another IP receiver. We can send this information up to 5 different IP accounts. What happens is when there's an event on the panel, it goes to the first line, and if it's a, say for example, an alarm event, it says, okay, I need to send this information, so it goes to the primary account settings and sends the information to this IP receiver. It then goes down to the next line and says, this is an alarm event, so I'm going to send it to this account as well, so you can send it up to 5 different locations. Similar to the UD1000, if I go up to delete IP reporting and click on this, it really turns it off because now when I go to add IP reporting and expand it, all of my settings are still there. So if you ever hit delete IP reporting or delete dialer, just go back and add it and all your information will still be there. It's a way of turning it off yet keeping your information. For more information on IP reporting, please refer to the installation manual. The next video in the series is P-Link devices. For more information on programming, please refer to the installation manual and find other resources on our website www.pottersignal.com.